Hello, my name is Jack Moses if you do not already know me, and if you're just new to the channel, nice to meet you, welcome, and thank you for clicking on this video. So, this is going to be the first video of a 12 video series on the journey and the story of my life up until this point at 23 years old, sitting in Hawaii at this Airbnb on a 12-day solo retreat, which I'll get into why I'm here and how I got here and all of that over the course of these 12 videos. But I've wanted to write a book for a long time, and this seems like the seed of that book actually coming into fruition. And everything I say in this 12 video series is likely going to be the origin and the foundation of that book called Trust Yourself. And so that's why this series is called Trust Yourself. So to start, I want to tell you a little bit about who I am. So on the surface, I'm a 23-year-old kid who is an internet entrepreneur and travels around the world, but as we're going to find out in this video series, it goes much deeper than that. So over the past few years, I've been on a wild journey going from studying economics at Northwestern and playing on the football team to quitting football, dropping out of college, traveling the world, writing online, and becoming an internet entrepreneur, and having a ton of crazy experiences from psychedelic trips to incredible business partnerships and collaborations with mentors and idols I used to look up to, doing podcasts with people who I used to look up to in Austin, Texas in person and on the internet, and making enough money on the internet where I could go travel and live a life that I want. And it has been a wild journey up to this point. I've gone from a kid who was just simply getting a finance internship in Chicago my sophomore year and expecting, I'll just go the consulting path, I'll just go the investment banking path, to being completely dropped out of society and completely dropped out of the system and the matrix, and going on this spiritual journey to realizing my true nature as spirit and one with reality. And now the dance for me is coming back into normal society and the matrix from this place of open awareness and infinite possibilities and everything I've learned over the past few years. So after this Hawaii trip, I'm going back to college at 23 years old to go play quarterback at a school called Illinois Benedictine, which just coincidentally my dad happened to go to 38 years ago. So it's just incredible how the universe works, and I'll eventually get into how I came to the conclusion to come back to football after becoming a creator, YouTuber, internet entrepreneur, psychedelic explorer, all these crazy things. That'll likely be like video 10 or 11 of this series, because there's a lot of density in my 23 years of life, especially the past 3. So before I get into, who am I from my origin, from my childhood, I want to tell you a little bit about why I think I'm put on this earth, why I came in this body, in this incarnation to this earth. And the reason that I believe I incarnated as a normal-looking white dude from the suburbs of Illinois with an athletic background, raised by a conservative family, is so that I could convey deep spiritual truths and facilitate deep emotional healing, awakening, and transformation and personal development to the masses, to the mainstream people. And, if I was born in the Himalayas in India, I wouldn't have the opportunity to potentially speak with a random kid from the suburbs of Illinois who's working a finance job that is interested in changing his life and working on his emotions and maybe going on the spiritual path, or just trusting himself enough to go out in the world and create the life he wants. That's really why I think I was put on this earth. And I believe that these last few years of my journey have prepared me and given me the adversity, the challenges, the experiences to be able to sit in front of a camera for what's likely going to be 20 to 30 hours this week and talk and just channel and say exactly what I feel to be true and share my story. And if the story inspires one person to, leave their job, or to go take a sabbatical and go travel, or to start writing and sharing their passion, or start creating art, or start creating poetry, or go on a spiritual development path, my job here is done. That's all I'm here for, and I'm just here to have fun and share my story. So that's a big reason why I think I was put on this earth. I think I was put on this earth to share truths through writing and speaking to awaken people to their true nature as spirits incarnated into human form, into 3D material form. And alongside with that, build businesses and projects in schools that facilitate this inner transformation and awakening and elevation of consciousness, which I'm going to get into eventually. But the main project is called Transcendence, which I envision to be a real life Hogwarts type of online and online and in-person schools, retreats, communities, cohorts, festivals, all of it. So with that, I have this book that's going to guide me through this ramble, through this rant. And let's go and start from childhood. So like I said, I was born in the suburbs of Illinois, and I lived in the same house my entire life in a small town outside of Chicago called Lake Zurich, Illinois. And had a sister 2 years younger, two great parents, stayed together, conservative family, not a very big family, and by all means, just a very normal, loving, beautiful upbringing that I'm so grateful to, that it gave me the foundation to go take these crazy risks and go leave normal society and choose the uncomfortable path when my entire upbringing was very comfortable. So a huge part of my childhood was playing sports. It was enthrusted upon to me by my dad. My dad was an athlete. His dad was an athlete. I'm sure his dad was an athlete. It kind of goes back generations. And so my grandfather, my dad's dad, played baseball in college in Illinois. My dad played baseball. He oscillated between baseball and football at the college I'm going back to in Illinois Benedictine, and he played baseball at another school and football at another school in Minnesota. And so sports were my entire childhood growing up. I didn't know what life was like outside of sports. Like I did well in school. I had a really great friend group, but it was sports that were always the driving motivator for me and my ultimate purpose. And so growing up playing sports, even whether it was in the neighborhood, on travel teams, I was always the youngest kid. And so this is where the origin of my character or my personality in this world developed. So in my neighborhood, I was the youngest kid by a few years. And again, none of this is ever coincidence. It was not a coincidence I was the youngest person in my neighborhood. It's not a coincidence I was the youngest person on these teams. It was all divinely orchestrated for my highest growth and ascension, as is your entire life story up to this point. So I was the youngest kid in my neighborhood. I always had to live up to the other older kids, and in sports I was usually 1 to 2 to 3 years younger than most kids, and so that came with pressure, which has been a huge theme of my life, is the pressure to perform. Even making this video, right before making this video, I was reminding myself there's no performance, there's just truth, there's just expression, there's just authenticity, there's no right way to do things. And so that was really instilled upon me in my youth, playing on the older teams with my dad as the coach, trying to live up to his expectations and trying to be good enough, essentially. So I played quarterback growing up on these older teams as the youngest kid, and I played second base, shortstop in baseball growing up, in point guard. So I was always in the center of the action, and I think that has formed a lot of how I view the world as well. But in these childhood years, playing on these older teams, I developed a really interesting relationship with age, in the fact that on these older teams, I always subconsciously felt like I wasn't good enough or like I shouldn't be there. And I was often picked on and bullied, especially in baseball, by the older kids on the team. And, I don't hold that against any of them. We were all kids having fun, and I just happened to be the smallest, the youngest kid on the team. So, of course, they're kind of going to pick on me and make fun of me. But it put this chip on my shoulder from a young age. And I can remember being 8 years old, 10 years old, and just kind of having this subconscious knowing that someday I'm going to be better than all of them. Someday I'm going to be the one who's the star of the team, even if they can't see it now, even if I'm the smallest kid on the team and I'm not very good and I'm super insecure and shy and everybody around me is talking about girls and I don't know, I'm younger, so I don't know what they're talking about. So there was always this feeling like, just wait, and someday I'll prove it to you, and someday I'll show it to you. So that fueled a lot of my high school journey in terms of sports, and it gave me that edge and that fire within. But we'll get into that a little bit. In terms of my character as a kid, I think I was very sweet. I was a bit shy and timid. I was a mother's boy. I was a mama's boy for sure. I was always around my mom, clinging to my mom. And I just wanted to play all the time. I just wanted to play. I could play for 8 hours a day. I could play sports. I could play Xbox. Whatever it was, I'd play all day. And so that has also formed a seed of how, my life philosophy at this point, of it all being play. I have it tattooed on my arm. It's all play. And, whenever we take life too seriously, or it feels like stress or whatever it is, we can remind ourselves it's all meant to be play. It's not meant to be taken seriously. I think Alan Watts has a quote. He's like, man suffers because he takes seriously what the gods made for fun. And so playfulness is in my nature, and I think it's why I actually chose the name Jack. So we choose our names, our birth families. We choose all of it before we come here, when we're in the in-between state in the fourth dimensional spiritual world. And I believe my name was very intentional. Jack being like this playful, electric energy. My middle name's Gabriel, which I think connects me to more of these angelic spiritual realms. And also that was my great-grandfather's name. And the last name, Moses, is to be a leader. And it's just interesting to think about, why is my name what it is? What is it trying to symbolize? What's it trying to say? Because that can connect us deeper to our true nature, along with so many other things, which I'll probably get into around astrology, human design, all these great things that I've been getting into recently. But so my character as a kid, playful, loving, sweet, kind, competitive, chip on my shoulder, needed to be better than other people, felt like I was better than other people. I think and this grew in high school, but I developed a pretty strong ego that I'm the best. And it makes sense, my Leo nature in astrology, Leo, center of attention, all of it, and that was true. And it's not bad, right, to be center of attention and speak your truth and express yourself. It's what I'm doing now. But it's where's it coming from? And for me, the feeling of I'm better than everybody was coming from a deep feeling of I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough in the face of my dad. It's my dad's expectations. I'm not good enough in the face of my teammates and my peers who are older than me and better than me, bigger than me. So I had to prove myself. So as you see, this is a really common theme of my life up to this point. I always was very interested in girls as a kid. I was obsessed with girls, from 3 years old. Like my neighbor, I was obsessed. And that's always been interesting to me too. Why have I been so interested in girls? Most guys are, but it seemed to a different level with me. And that's going to be a big part of my story later on, when I fell in love, fell out of love, had a really hard few years of relationships and sexual impotency and performance anxiety and self-doubt and mental health and all of these crazy things, which we'll get into. But I'm preluding a lot of this video series right now, and it's hard not to. So much has happened, and so that's why I'm so excited to make this, is just for myself to channel all of this out of me that's been in here for so long. And if you see me in person, unless you really get to know me, I can be a little bit of a reserved guy. I don't hold back. I don't share everything. There's so much to share, and so sharing in solitude, on social media like this, or in writing, has been really, really great for me to be able to express myself and get things out, because the level of depth at which I perceive reality and perceive myself is not common, I would assume. And so sometimes it's hard for me to share those truths with people around me, up until the last year, when I've really found my soul tribe, it seems, in Austin, Texas, with other men and women who can share that same level of emotional depth. But let's go back to Illinois. So going into middle school, things started to shift in terms of I began to excel in sports, especially when I started to play around with kids my own age, because I'd always played with kids older than me my whole childhood. And so now I was playing with kids my own age. And that level of confidence, like the difference in confidence when I was playing with kids my own age versus playing with kids older than me, it's still reflected in my life to this day. It's interesting because, like, in business, in entrepreneurship, in the creator economy, whatever it is, I'm usually the youngest person in the teams I'm with, or the deals I'm doing, or the collaborations. I often have clients who are like 40, 50, 60 years old, and I'm 23. And so for a while, it's been like, oh, I'm too young, like nobody cares about my opinion. But around my peers, around people my age, I'm like, there would also be a subconscious thing of, oh, I'm smarter than everybody. But that has really dissolved in the past year or so with a lot of the deep inner work I've done and psychedelic journeys, and seeing everybody as just human. And so no matter if it's a 60-year-old guy I'm on the phone with helping him with his internal emotional state, or launching a new program, or I'm talking with an 18-year-old kid who's just in the creator economy, it's like everybody's human, and there's no superiority, inferiority anymore, which has been huge for me to let. It feels like a weight off my shoulders to let go of all that shit of superiority, inferiority complexes. Like, somebody has more followers than me on social media, oh, I'm going to look up to them. If they make more money, I look up to them. If they're younger than me, I look down to them. If they don't use social media, I look down to them. It's all bullshit. We're all even. We're all human. We're all on this earth trying to figure things out with our imperfections and flaws, and just experience love and peace and enjoy our lives. That's why we're here, I think. So back to middle school. I was not thinking like this in middle school. I was just so into sports and girls. That was pretty much it, right? That was my middle school experience. I started to get really interested sports, girls, and my friend group in middle school, which I believe like is my soul tribe, my origin tribe of like brothers. 5 guys that are just incredible humans. Joey, Patrick, Tyler, and myself were like kind of this core group, and there's so many more great people I grew up with. But middle school was the time of my fucking life. I loved it. And it's funny, I feel like so many people feel similarly, but they wouldn't ever say it, that like middle school is one of the greatest times to be alive. Like, you're a kid, you're starting to come online a little bit, like you're aware of things, like you're waking up a little bit, and you have a lot of freedom, right? You go to school and you play sports. That's about all your obligations. And school is so fun. It's just chaos, and everybody's starting to get these hormones, and like everybody's making fun of each other, which sometimes would be quite destructive. And there was a lot of bullying in middle school, and sometimes I was the perpetrator of that. And so, I mean, if anybody's out there listening to this and I picked on you, I'm sorry, really, because I know how it feels, because I was the same. So it's middle school, right? So people are like, it's insignificant, but those are such formative years. And for me, it's when I really started to excel, I'd say in 8th grade, around sports especially, was football, like becoming quite good at quarterback, and like having so much autonomy and freedom in football, like getting to the point of like calling the plays or like changing the plays, and being able to see the whole field, which is now forming my entrepreneurship career as like this visionary and quarterback. It was all formed in childhood. And that's why, if I'm working with somebody or speaking with somebody and they're trying to figure out who they are, like, who am I at my core nature? What should I do for my career? The way to find that is look at what you were doing in childhood. Because for me, the projects I would create was playing NBA 2K and building franchises and teams, and then playing quarterback and being able to see the whole field, and be a leader of a friend group and understand other friends' emotions. Like, that is all forming my work today. And so if you're out there and you're listening to this and you're like, I don't know what I want to do with my life yet, I don't know what my purpose is, I don't know who I am. Who were you as a kid? What were you doing that was different than everybody else around you? What were you better at than everybody else? Without ego, in humility, looking at yourself objectively, like, what was I just doing really good at? What could I do for hours that other people would find boring? Like, that's your secret. That's your authentic frequency. That's your unique genius, right? So lean into that. And so for me, leaning into that, especially recently, has opened up a lot in my life. Going into high school. So high school was quite an interesting time for me. A lot of up and downs. Mostly ups, but there were a few crucial downs that began to harden my heart, I would say. A few specific examples and experiences. So let me take a sip of this matcha and feel where I want to take this. So I'll briefly run through freshman year. Freshman year was also fucking great. It was like 8th grade. I was quarterback of the freshman team. We were undefeated, 9-0. I felt like I was playing, and there was like no pressure or nerves at this point, which is interesting, right? Because that came back later. But again, it was playing with my peer group. I love that I'm discovering things about myself as I make these fucking videos. So grateful. So grateful that divine source gave me the download to make this video series. Thank you so much. Thank you. So, coming to this conclusion now. Freshman year football, I was fucking incredible. Like, in humility, I was incredible. Like, and our team was so fucking good. Like, we were the best freshman football team in the state of Illinois by far. And, like, at this point, I was like, I'm going to go play D1 quarterback. And I wasn't super big. I was like 5'9" at the time, but we were just balling. We were so fucking good, and I was so confident, and I was never nervous because I felt I was playing around my peers, and I was playing with kids my age, and I'm like, I've been playing with older kids my whole life. This is going to be fucking easy. And it was, because I had that belief, and then it manifested in me just, like, playing so freely to the point where, like, it was just domination. It was so fun, and playing with all my best friends and my boys, and everybody was thriving, and this seemed like a real peak in my life. And a lot of my friends' life was at 15 years old, freshman year football, where we're all in good shape, we're aligned. You know, partying hasn't really started yet too, which is interesting. Interesting. And, you know, partying was starting to start a little bit then. Like, I think the first time I drank alcohol was at a New Year's Eve party freshman year of high school, but again, that was after the football season. And so, like, freshman year of high school was when it seemed like my group, my immediate group, my team, we were at our best. Like, kids were so focused, I was so focused, and then slowly things started to fade, right? People would get into drugs, they'd get into drinking, they'd get into girls, they'd stop caring about football, things would go on. And you know, if our freshman football team stuck together, I sound like a guy right now who's like, if we would have done that, glory days, but I'm just telling the story. You know, if we would have stuck together and been really aligned and focused for our 4 years, like, we were the best. We were such a great group of athletes. Like, we were really special. Special kids, too. Like, we were living from our hearts, it felt like. That feels really true. Like, we weren't just great douchebag athletes. We also were, like, good kids. We were really good kids. We had hearts. And we still do. All my friends still do. I see it. I feel it. So, freshman year, parties begin. Even though I had that great season as a quarterback, when it was time for football call-ups for varsity football, like, the varsity team went to the playoffs, and a lot of crazy stuff happened with, like, a hazing situation at my high school, which I won't go too deep into here. It's not that relevant, but for the varsity playoffs, they were going to call up 4 freshmen to be on the varsity team and be able to dress with the team and travel and be on the field and even potentially get into the game. And I thought for sure I was going to be one of those 4 kids, but I wasn't. They didn't take me. And so that hurt. It fueled me. You know, it gave me another thing of, like, I'm going to prove these people wrong. And so the next year I'm going to go play varsity football, which is what happened, even though I didn't make the team as a freshman. And it gave me that chip on my shoulder and a little bit of competitiveness of, like, oh, these guys, you think they're better than me? Fuck no. I'm going to prove that I'm better. And, you know, in some ways this fuel was good, but it's something that I'm letting go of now. Like, all competition, I'm letting go of. Competition is suffering. Unconditional love is where it's at. Like, from now, the perspective is, oh, awesome, these other guys made it, and I didn't make it, cool, whatever. It's okay. It's divinely planned. But that fueled me at that time, not making the team. And so I ended up playing freshman year basketball, which was super fun. And again, like, I played a little bit on JV. I got called up. I was pretty good. I ended up giving up basketball to focus more on football and baseball so I could go play in college, which there's no regrets, but there's a little bit of regret, I guess. Like, I would have loved to play more basketball. It's still my favorite sport, even though I'm like 5'10", dude. Um, but it was so fun, and I just wanted to focus more on baseball and football so that I could get to college, which kind of started to put me on this treadmill of looking ahead and like I need to get somewhere, which is all an illusion because there's nowhere to go. There's only here right now. Also, freshman year, my entrepreneurship career began. So at this time, I would like ride bikes to Goodwill with my friends, and like we'd buy and resell shoes and jerseys and like other apparel and resell them on eBay. And so I started to make some money doing that, and I had a knack for it. And I figured out some hack or like some glitch in the system where I would buy fake NBA jerseys from DHgate or AliExpress, China. I would list them on eBay. I wouldn't say they were real, so I was like, I'm not breaking any rules. And so I would put like Steph Curry jersey on eBay for like $37 or something. So that's super cheap, right? For people who want a Steph Curry jersey or a Tom Brady jersey. But I would buy them for like 22 or maybe less, maybe like 18 or 12 or something. So I was making like 20, $30 a jersey. I don't remember the numbers, but I was making like 20, $30 a jersey. And then I started to understand like market timing and marketing. And I remember I listed Tom Brady's jersey at the lowest price in the entire eBay market right after they won the Super Bowl in like, what was it, 2015 against the Rams. I listed that jersey right after, and I made so much fucking money. And I made like $5,000 in a week as like a 14, 15-year-old on eBay on my computer. And I had a whole notebook. I was tracking every order and all this stuff, but I was like starting to get stressed. And at one point, eBay like shut down my account, and I got like an email from the NFL that was like, you can't do this. And I like wrecked my mom's eBay account, so I'm sorry. But that was kind of the origin of my entrepreneurship journey and like a knack for making money. And it was fun. And yeah, it was really fun times. So going into sophomore year, like I said, I was fueled by not making the varsity playoff team as a freshman. And so I worked my ass off like all summer to get on the varsity team. And so I switched positions. They put me at wide receiver instead of quarterback, but I was the backup quarterback. And like it was like a dream come true. I was playing with kids 2 years older than me. It was varsity football. It was Friday night lights. And in my town, like 4,000, 5,000 people sometimes would be at the game. So it was like a pretty big deal. And so life was really on the upswing for me. And so it's interesting now looking back, like there are these dips and these peaks like throughout my entire life where at the start of my sophomore year, everything was just working out perfectly. When I was on varsity as a sophomore, I started like dating this senior girl, and it was like this huge thing. And this is when a lot of my sexual insecurity began too, because she wanted to, and I did too, but I wasn't ready. She wanted to like engage in some sexual acts, I guess you could say. And I was so fucking scared, and I wasn't ready, and so I said no. And that kind of was the origin of my insecurity around sex and sexuality. But anyways, I ended up ending that relationship. It didn't feel right. I felt like a kid. I was like 16 and she was 18. And I started dating this other girl my sophomore year of high school. I'm not going to say her name. But that was like, I found my soulmate at the time. And I was 16, so like, at the time, it felt like she was the love of my life. Like we were so perfect for each other. We had a great energy, great chemistry, but it felt different than all the other relationships I was seeing around me. And so at the time I was like, of course, maybe I just think this because we're in the relationship. So like, yeah, it's special or something, but it really was special. We had a really deep soul connection, and yeah, I've like muscle tested this and verified this. I think that her and I were probably together in many past lives, which if she's listening to this, she's gonna be like, what the fuck is he talking about? But we'll talk about that another time. But yeah, so this first relationship was, the first time I really felt like I was in love. And it was my first everything, and it was so beautiful and so wholesome and so sweet. And yeah, it was great. And eventually that ended up ending, which I'll get into as I keep going through the story. But that start of my sophomore year, getting into that relationship and being on the varsity team was just like I felt like I was in heaven. And so at the end of this football season, we ended up making the state championship as a 13-0 team. Like, we were supposed to win the state championship. I was starting at wide receiver. It was like, this is fucking incredible. We play at a Northern Illinois stadium with maybe 20, I think it was 26,000 people were in the stands. And that got to me. So here's what happened in that state championship game. And, I haven't fully let go of this moment, I think, until yesterday. And I'll tell you why. So in this state championship game, we're losing like 7-0. I'm playing wide receiver, but sometimes they put me in the backfield to play running back. And so I get in the backfield. They call like a 30, I remember it was like a 21 dive or something. And so 31 dive. So I get the ball. I start running. And before the play, I'm so fucking nervous. The whole game, I was nervous. I'm like, there's so many people. There's so much pressure. I need to perform. Like, this was the peak of my performance anxiety in sports, which I then manifested in other areas, which is funny. But I was so nervous, and I knew I was going to get the ball, and so I started overthinking it. And I saw myself in the game film, like, rubbing my hands on my pants because I was nervous and my hands were sweating. And so I get the ball, I start running, and I juke to the left, and I run right into one of my really good friends, Spencer Bacon. I run into his ass, and I fumble. And they get the ball, and they score, and now they're winning 14-0. And we ended up losing the game by 3 points, and I always thought to myself, like, if that didn't happen, we would have won. And so there was so much guilt and shame around that, and the announcer on TV said to me, he's like, oh, or not to me, he said to the broadcast, he's like, oh, it's a butt fumble. And like, butt fumble stuck with me for years. Like, people would say it to me. I had felt so insecure about it. This is so deep, but there was another kid on the team, that our kicker, that ended up missing the game-winning field goal by like a few inches, and then we went to overtime and lost, and he ended up getting like all the blame from the school. Like, he didn't go to school for like weeks because he missed the field goal and we lost the state championship. And everybody blamed that on him. And I felt like it is what it is. This is what I felt. I felt like this subtle sense of relief. I'm like, oh, thank God. Like, people aren't blaming me. They're blaming him. Good. Like, people forgot that I butt fumbled because he missed the field goal. And if he would have made the field goal, we would have won. And nobody's going to remember. But that was like a moment where I really started to harden my heart and like not allow myself to feel those emotions. I remember like right after that game, like everybody's crying, and for whatever reason, I just like couldn't get myself to cry. I was holding on to it. I was hardening myself, and I felt so insecure about that for so long. And it culminated yesterday. What is it now? 6 years later, probably almost to the date. For whatever reason, I decided to watch that game on the plane here to Hawaii because I knew there was something in there I had to let go of. And I watched that play happen over and over again and noticed the reactions in my body. And as I talk about it, it's still happening a little bit. My hands get sweaty. I'm nervous, so I drop the ball, right? And so I watched that, and I sat with myself, and I noticed the triggers in the body, and I forgave myself and gave myself unconditional love. And so I talked to a girl on the plane about this, which is another story, but she's like, oh, you're doing quantum healing on yourself. And I was like, yeah, I guess so. So quantum healing is like in the quantum field, space-time, there's no space and time. So all realities exist in this quantum field. And so what I'm doing when I'm watching myself fumble in the state championship game 6 years ago, now I'm watching it and I'm sending unconditional love and forgiveness and letting the body release and soften and come back to its natural state now. Because the trauma from that incident and any incidents in the past is stored in the body. It's stuck in that dimension of space-time. And so in the current moment now, we can release that and give ourselves 16-year-old self unconditional love so that it releases and dissolves and that inner child wound is healed. So, there's still a little bit of sweat there for me, which I'm going to do more inner work on and clear that out. But even by me talking about it, it feels like it's clearing out. It's clearing out through the throat. It's clearing out through the mouth, and the body is softening. So that was quite a traumatic incident in my life at 16 to fumble in the state championship game and lose. And I started to like dissociate a little bit, I think, around this time. I remember, like, because the moments were so big, there's a little gecko looking at me right here. He's so cute. Hi. He's like listening. He's staring at me. But I remember around this time in like the state championship, the semifinals, the quarterfinals, I would start to dissociate because the moment felt too big. It felt like there was too much pressure, and I started to like, I just want to go back and cuddle with my girlfriend. I just want to be at home. I don't want to be in this moment. It's cold. I don't want to have pressure on me. So that's been an interesting journey to navigate too, like the illusion of pressure, the illusion of needing to perform, even on this video. So that was sophomore year. One other thing is I began to really start to care about myself more, but not in a healthy way. In like, I need to prove my importance and worth to other people because I don't feel whole and confident and self-assured within myself. And so, again, this is something that people don't know, but maybe they know. I think some people know, and I felt shame about it, is like on the bus ride home from that game in my sophomore year of college, the state championship, instead of like crying with my teammates or just being in that moment or whatever it was, I went on Instagram and I changed my bio to quarterback at Lake Zurich. And, you know, that was me looking ahead to the future of like, okay, this season's over. Next year, I'm going to be starting quarterback. It's going to be my team. I'm important. It's about me. Ignorance. Youthful ignorance. So again, I'm sorry to everybody that, you know, I did that and I wasn't fully there. And I was looking at myself more than the team. But I also forgive myself for it because I was just trying to find some type of internal validation because I didn't feel good enough outside. So these moments, like, you know, if you're listening to this and you've already known me, or if you haven't, it's like, dude, you're talking about 15, 16 years old, but these are the formative years of our lives. Like, this is when so many traumatic experiences happen, and even before. I think I'm grateful that I actually didn't have a lot of trauma growing up, other than like some bullying and being picked on and heartbreak or whatever. But like around 15, 16 is when a lot of these bigger traumatic experiences started to happen. And so I'm grateful that I was more aware at the time so I can remember them now and then forgive them through unconditional love. And if you're wondering, like, how the fuck do you do that? Basically what you do is you sit with yourself in meditation and you notice when a certain memory triggers and where that memory triggers some type of response in the body. So, for example, with this football story, I feel sweat in my right hand. Now, this is not a normal one. Usually it's like tension in like an ankle or tension in a shoulder or tension in the throat or like a cough or like not expressing myself, right? So what you can start to do is map your stored trauma in the body. This is somatic work. This is awakening work. This is all of it. You can start to map the stored trauma and solidities and contractions and points of tension in the body to origin stories. So the origin story of my hand being sweaty is I need to perform to be good enough, which actually probably comes from like 5 years old playing basketball, or I connected the story the other day back to like being 11 or 12 and playing basketball and being super nervous and fucking up, and then my dad yells at me in the car and all this stuff. And so what I can do now in the present moment is I can go back in my mind to that time at 11 years old when I fucked up and I was nervous in basketball, and I say to myself, Jack, I completely forgive you for being nervous. I completely forgive you for feeling like you needed to be good enough. I completely forgive you for feeling like you needed to perform in order to be worthy of love. And so you can continue pulling those threads, and as you say certain things, you can notice the tension points in the body begin to dissolve. And this is awakening. This is the spiritual path. This is true freedom and internal work and personal development, rather than just thinking about things, of actually allowing them to release in the body. So therapy, working with coaches, all of it is so great because they can guide you and point you out to your blind spots, but you can do the work on yourself. You can sit with yourself and notice and start to connect the stories. And if you do this, not many people are doing this stuff. Not many people are listening to this video. So you can do it all. But and then there's also the forgiveness piece of my dad. Like, see, things are coming up and releasing for me now. Everything is a release, by the way. The burp is a release, a sneeze is a release, a cough is a release. The sore throat you're experiencing is not because necessarily some virus is out there. It's because you're not saying the truth. The tension in your head is not because you didn't sleep enough or something. It's because you're thinking too hard or something like this, right? So all these things in the body are pointers and keys to a deeper spiritual truth of the roots and the origin of the dis-ease or disorder or dysfunction. So there's forgiveness for self, forgiveness for dad, and then you can tie a loop, I imagine like an infinity sign, between my dad and myself in that time and space at 11 years old, 12 years ago, and saying, I completely forgive and release myself. I completely forgive and release my dad. I completely forgive and release my dad as he completely forgives and releases me. And notice the body soften. I just noticed my entire body soften. My shoulders just dropped. So I'm doing the work live on this video. And you can do it yourself too. So that was sophomore year. Now let's go to upperclassmen times. Junior year, right? We start driving cars. Like, it's fun. Start partying a lot more. One thing I want to mention too before I go to junior year, in my sophomore year and freshman year a little bit, I started to have glimpses looking back now of being a little bit of a rebel. So I was like a goody two-shoes type kid, like an angel type kid, golden child, all the golden kid, golden boy, these are things people would say to me. But I was always curious enough and had a little bit of a rebellious streak where like, okay, yeah, I'm going to go with a few more sketchy friends and go smoke weed at the park at like 1 a.m. Or I'm going to secretly be sending like nudes to people, to girls at like 13, 14 years old. So there was this rebellious daredevil type side to me, which then kind of was suppressed for many years as starting quarterback, college football, economics, and then it came out of me again with the desire to go be a free, nomad, traveling, hippie, spiritual entrepreneur. But that was always in me too. So don't just look at the things you're great at. Look at the things that like you didn't maybe want to look at, or like what were you kind of secretly doing? Because those things are also a part of you, and they were a part of me. So I was a little bit of a rebel at that time. I wouldn't listen in class. All the teachers liked me because I could sweet talk my way, and I looked sweet, and I was sweet, but I was just always a little bit like questioning everything, and like I thought I was better than everybody, and which served me well. But I was a rebel. I was a rebel at the time, which now I get looked at as a rebel with like tattoos and traveling and all this stuff. But I think you could feel my heart, and I think I'm still sweet. So funny. Okay, so junior year football. Remember I told you on the bus ride back from that football game, sophomore year state championship, I changed my bio to quarterback at Lake Zurich. So that karma kind of came back full circle, and a kid that was 6'5" came and transferred to play quarterback for our school, and he ended up winning the starting quarterback job over me. I was playing receiver again, and I was a little bit upset, but I also didn't care that much. Like, some way, I did care. I was hurt, and it was a hit to my ego, but I was still so immersed in that high school relationship that was still the priority for me. Like, love and romance was the priority over football at that point, and that started to shift, which I'll get into. But me not playing quarterback, in a way it was like, okay, like, cool, I don't have to deal with the pressure of this, which is a pattern for me too, like shying away from the moment, shying away from the spotlight, even though it's in my nature to be in the spotlight as a Leo, as like all of this, but shying away because there's perceived pressure that I have to live up to an expectation, so I'd rather just be kind of to the side and not seen, and then I'm okay. So this kid comes in, starts at quarterback. He does a pretty good job. I'm playing receiver. I'm actually doing pretty good, and I'm actually super grateful I played receiver for that year because I got some really good high school game film at receiver that I was then able to send to colleges and like play receiver in college. So if I didn't have that, if I didn't play receiver that year, I probably wouldn't have played in college, or I don't know, who knows, right? We can't change the past, but everything was happening for a reason. There's a quote from Peter Crone, this like spiritual teacher, freedom coach that I love, and he's like, everything that happened perfectly because it happened, and it couldn't have happened any other way. And so I love looking back at life and being like, everything that seemed like a fuck up, everything that seemed like a failure, everything that didn't go as planned, it actually is all going to plan in the divine order of the universe, and everything is working out for its highest good. So junior year, I actually get put as the starting quarterback around like game 7. They ended up benching this guy, and he like a few games he didn't play so well, and we got fucking killed by this one team. Even though I had a good game individually, I remember. But I got the starting quarterback job like week 8. I had 2 games against bad teams, which got my confidence up before the playoffs. And then in the playoffs, I had a really good first game. I had this crazy play like in the first drive where I like scrambled out, stiff-armed a guy, pointed to my guy, threw it deep. That was so fun. James, my guy. And then we won that game. And the second game, it was the second game. Yeah, it was second game. We played a team called Mount Carmel, which is like this private Catholic powerhouse, and we were the public school, just a bunch of friends, just a bunch of dudes who grew up playing together, and we'd always play these powerhouse Catholic teams. And now the rain's coming. It's so beautiful. And again, I was so nervous going into this game. Like, we're playing Mount Carmel, like got all these guys who were super good, and I was kind of shying away from the moment again, and this has been a pattern my whole life of shying away from the moment. And I notice in my voice there's a little bit of shame there. So I'm going to do more work after this, but I unconditionally love that 17-year-old version of myself who was playing quarterback and nervous. Like, you were just doing your best, bro. I noticed the body soften. This is the work, guys. This is the key. And sharing your story like this will give you so much fucking freedom. Wow. And you're going to identify old triggers come up as you share. So we ended up losing that game, which, again, I was secretly a little bit happy about. Like, okay, cool, we don't have to play anymore. Okay, cool, I can just chill and play video games and hang out with my girlfriend. I don't have to be under the pressure. I don't have to be in the spotlight. We don't have to go play this crazy good team called East St. Louis with like 20 D1 commits, and I'm so fucking scared. So I was like low-key a little bit happy that we lost. Which is okay. But at the root of that, it's the illusion that I never needed to perform in the first place, and that it wasn't all just play and all for fun. This has come up so many times in this first video. Maybe the title will be something like this. So what else happened junior year? Junior year, I began to start thinking about college and began to start thinking about sports in college. And at the time, I thought I wanted to play baseball in college. I thought I wanted to play baseball at Northwestern, a school that I was starting to become interested in, like 45 minutes away from me, and they started to have a really good football team, and I was like, oh, I could go play baseball here. I was actually a really good baseball player. I might have been better at baseball than football, but football, it was more under the spotlight, which is such a funny paradox, right? Like, more people in the stands, more status, like, people care more, but at the same time, I didn't want the pressure. So it's like, oh, I don't really want it, but I actually really do deep down, but I'm not willing to accept it because I think I have to be some certain guy. So interesting, right? How these patterns play out. I think where it comes back to is I'm just do it for me. Do it for myself. Same with this video, right? I'm doing it for myself. And that authentic expression will lead to whatever it's supposed to lead to, but there's nobody to impress. So I think I'm going to go play baseball at Northwestern. I start talking to the coaches and all this stuff, and I end up tearing my right labrum in my shoulder in a baseball game, like sliding into first base. And I already had torn my left shoulder. It was already kind of fucked up. And now the right shoulder kind of prevented me from throwing. And so the school didn't come to scout me, and baseball started to be like, I don't know if I'm going to play baseball anymore. And that started to shift my mind to football, which again was all divinely orchestrated. But I really thought I was going to play baseball my junior year and not football. But then my shoulder starting to hurt. It was interesting because like the way my shoulder was hurt, it was easier for me to throw a baseball or throw a football than it was to throw a baseball. Like the motion of a football was easier on the shoulder than a baseball was because it was like heavier and there was less torque and all this stuff. And so it's raining a bit, but I think we're good. And so it was almost like God or the universe like intentionally hurt my shoulder just a bit so that I couldn't really throw a baseball, but I could still throw a football, so I could still pursue this dream of playing college football, which is what I did. And so around springtime, when I hurt my shoulder and I'm playing baseball, this is when my high school relationship, which had been going on for about a year and a half, started to end. So what happened at this time was me starting to think ahead to college football or college baseball and college sports and like having all this status and going away next year to school. It took me out of the present moment. And it started to create this pattern of looking ahead to get somewhere so that now is not good enough or now is insignificant. And so I started to not be able to be fully present with this high school girlfriend, and I started to look ahead and I started to think, okay, if I'm in college and I'm a D1 athlete, I'm going to be able to get any girl I want. I want to be able to talk to as many girls as I want. And so I ended up breaking up with her, which was like one of the hardest things I've ever done, even to this day, like, because there was still this feeling of unconditional love despite breaking up. And like, I'm 17 at the time. I don't know how to handle this. I don't know anything about love or managing emotions. It was just like, fuck, I still love you, but I feel like I'm not in this fully. But I wasn't in it fully because I wasn't in the present moment fully. I was looking ahead. Now, it all happened how it was supposed to, because creating that space, which was another reason why I wanted to break up, was like, if I create space in my life in this area, I can spend more time and energy on football and training and going to summer camps and getting recruited, and then also more time with my friends senior year, which I'm grateful that all happened. But that was the origin of looking ahead. And losing out on a potential soulmate. But again, like, that all was supposed to happen how it happened. And I have so much unconditional love for that girl, and she's such a beautiful soul, and I'm sure we're going to be connected in the future. I just feel it. I don't know in what capacity, but yeah, that moment was really tough for my 17-year-old self. And that also kind of, it started to store more emotions in the body. I didn't want to feel that. I didn't want to feel the hurt and heartbreak. And I remember driving home after I broke up with her and like blasting Juice WRLD and crying so fucking much. And crying a pretty good amount, which was healthy looking back. Like, I'm glad that I did. But I started to suppress emotions, and that was a pattern over the next few years. So I end this relationship in spring, and then summer going into senior year, here's where I start to go super hard on recruiting and trying to play college football. So I go to camps all across the country. My dad drives me around the country. We go on flights and go on visits and visit schools, and I start to really ball out, and I'm really training hard, and I'm doing really good, and I'm in super good shape, and I'm so fucking committed and devoted to this mission. And I wanted to go to Northwestern above all schools. They were the Big Ten school, D1, in my area. They were starting to get good. They just made to the Big Ten championship. They played Ohio State. They almost won, and I wanted to go there so fucking bad. And everybody doubted me, which again was like this chip on my shoulder. I don't know if they would have outwardly said it, but I always felt it like, oh, Moses thinks he's going to go to D1 Northwestern. Like, dude, no way, you're 5'10", like, whatever. And so I always had this faith and this knowingness, like, yeah, I'm going to go there. I know I'm going there. I would tell my mom, like, it's going to sound crazy, but I'm going to Northwestern. And at this time, they didn't even talk to me. But I just knew. And so this is the power of manifestation, right? Like, our thoughts create our reality. And, even though I didn't have the terms or the spiritual knowledge to know it at this point, my knowingness of I'm going to go play D1 football at Northwestern manifested into reality. So I went to their camp that summer, and I played wide receiver there, and I was playing wide receiver at all the camps because I was like, I'm not going to be able to play D1 as a quarterback, but I can as a wide receiver. So I played wide receiver at that camp, and I had the best day of my life, which is interesting because there was no nerves or pressure to perform. So it's like, why was there no pressure to perform? I think the preparation, like I was so dialed. I was like not drinking, maybe a little bit. I was training super hard. I was eating healthy, and the preparation just led me like, this is who I am. I'm fucking good. I'm doing one-on-ones with kids all the time. Like, I'm ready for this moment. And so I just balled out. I balled the fuck out. So it's like, okay, I balled the fuck out there, but I didn't in other situations. Why? It could be something to do with like, in other situations in sports where I got super nervous or didn't live up to expectations, it's because I was imagining what everybody else there was thinking about me, like all my teammates, all the people in the stands, all the parents, all the coaches. But at this camp, nobody was there, except my dad. And at this time, like growing up, my dad was hard on me in sports, like with coaching and stuff. But by this time, he was just my biggest fan and supporter. So I'm so fucking grateful for that. I'm so grateful for you, Dad. And at that camp, like I didn't think I had to go impress him. I wasn't there to impress him. He was just there. He drove me. He supported me. He was talking me up to all the coaches. So I was like, I'm just here to play. I'm here to show myself and prove to these coaches I am good enough. And I did. And they ended up hitting me up a few months later, giving me an opportunity to walk on the team. It's something called a preferred walk-on. So like, this ties into like my unique genius or expertise now is like being multidimensional. So in high school, I didn't really try in school because I didn't care, even though I'm like a major nerd now. I didn't care as much about school in high school, but I was like smart enough to do well. So I got like a 4.3 GPA. I got like a 31 on the ACT, and I didn't study, and I like woke up hungover and went and took it. And so I was 31 ACT, 4.3 GPA, so it was like good, but not Northwestern good. Like you need like a 36 to get into Northwestern. So I wasn't quite good enough in school, but I wasn't quite good enough or big enough in football, but the combination of the two got me in. And so that theme has been repeated around my life. Like I'm not the best writer, not the best marketer, not the best podcaster, but all of them together have formed this unique zone of genius that separates me from everybody else. So that was the origin of it in high school. And so senior year football, I mean, this was so fucking fun. This was like the time of my life. It was kind of like freshman year, 8th grade all over again. Like me and all my boys, like we're all just playing and having so much fun. And started off rough. The first game, I came in cocky. That had been a theme in my life too, to come in cocky and think I'm the fucking shit. And I'm wearing an arm sleeve and a visor and a towel and all these accessories. And I go in and throw 3 picks and we lose like 24-0. So that was humbling. That was really humbling. It's a great lesson to be in humility all the time and to be present and to not think, oh, just because we beat this team the last 3 years and just because I've destroyed them every time I play them, it's going to happen again. Be in humility. Second game, we lost again. It was a really great game. Third game, we won. We start to win. And the fourth game, I had the best game of my life. It was against a school called Lake Forest. And in this game, the first play of the game, I ran 80-yard touchdown. And like, I was so confident that game against Lake Forest because they had a guy, a defensive lineman, 300 pounds. I'm 170 pounds or something. 300-pound defensive lineman, 6'5", going to Notre Dame. His name's Riley Mills. I think he's still on Notre Dame. He might be in the NFL now. But he wasn't playing. He was hurt. And it was like a game-time decision. I remember I was fucking nervous. I'm like, I don't want to play this kid. Like, he's fucking huge. I'm nervous. I'm scared. And we pull up to the game on the bus, and I see him in street clothes. Like, that means he's not going to play. And so when I saw he wasn't going to play, I'm like, oh, let's fucking go. It's over. And so from that place of internal confidence, which was the illusion that it was something out there, it was all me the whole time. This is the key. It was all me the whole fucking time. And I was so confident, and I went in, and I threw for like 230 yards and ran for 230 yards and like had 400 yards and 4 touchdowns, and we won like 40-7. Or it was just like the best game of our career, my career. And after that game was when I got invited to Northwestern and got the preferred walk-on and ended up committing to Northwestern. So that was a peak. But here's what happened. I'm noticing things in my right arm related to this. What happened was when I committed to Northwestern, the same pattern of looking ahead to the future began to take over the present moment. So it was really interesting because I wanted nothing more than to win the state championship that year. I'd idealize it like crazy. I'd watch the 2007 state championship over and over and over again to try to like be like, all right, we're going to win the fucking state championship. And I wanted it so bad, but I subtly started to look ahead to the future. And that started to manifest in the playoffs. So in the playoffs, the first game in the playoffs, I was dissociating again. The moment was perceived as big. And there was the moment of like, oh, maybe I kind of want this to be over. I just want to go play college football. I want this to be over. I don't want the pressure. I want to just be able to chill. I don't want to play in the cold. I don't want to have to perform. So we ended up winning that game, and I played okay. I ended up settling in and playing better once like some of those early nerves and disassociation kind of wore off, which now I'm like, okay, I'm going back to play college football in like 2 weeks. What the fuck? And now I'm like, okay, this pattern of anxiety, performance dissociation, looking ahead, how do I ground myself? Now, at the time, I had no spiritual awareness, though I did meditate before games. And in my lunch breaks, I'd meditate for like 5 minutes or 10 minutes. And I didn't know why. It just felt like I should do this. Like, it's like my higher self knew. And like my higher self always like knows. Your higher self knows little things. I think it's why I'm here in Hawaii. I don't know why I'm fucking here, but my higher self knows why I'm here. He knew I was going to make this video and this series and like do more deep internal healing work and come to conclusions and ask myself the question now going back and playing football, how do I not dissociate? How do I not be in performance anxiety? How do I not look ahead to the future? And it's all here now. It's here now. So we ended up winning. I made a few really good plays and it was awesome. And the second game I was more confident for some reason. We were playing at home. That could be why. So it felt more comfortable and known. And another really cool game. I think I ran for 2 touchdowns. And our defense is just playing fucking great. And people were playing their hearts out. And we all wore tattoos, which was so funny. And I thought I'd never get a fucking tattoo. Like, I was actually too shy and insecure to put tattoos on my arms in high school football. We put on, like, stick-on tattoos. It's like a program tradition. We get made fun of by other teams, but we loved it. I'd only, like, put the tattoos on my legs, or, like, maybe one on my arm, but, like, I didn't want it to be super visible. And now I have fucking tattoos on my arms. It's so funny how that works. That was the internal rebel that never really got to express itself, but through like a lot of this travel and psychedelics and MDMA and new things that has unlocked in me. So we go into the third game at home against this school called Willowbrook, and like we should have fucking beat them. They were not good. And what happened was I felt super calm and present that game, actually. I felt like I got this under control. I felt very under control that game. And we were down, I think, 14-7. I threw a touchdown to my guy James that I mentioned earlier, like a 65-yard touchdown. This dude one hand catches it. He did it in the game before, too. This guy's a fucking legend. I love this guy. And shout out James. And we're down 14-7 or 10-7 maybe, and we're driving down the field. It's the second quarter. It's almost halftime. I'm starting to run the ball a lot, like 5-yard carry, 5-yard carry, 5-yard carry. But I get fucking cocky. And I get egoic. And I think I have to do this all myself. Interesting pattern to note. Very interesting pattern to note. So I'm running a read option, which if you don't know football, basically I can either give the ball to the running back or keep it myself, depending on what the defensive end does. And so if the defensive end goes with the running back, I keep it. If the defensive end stays, then I give the ball to my running back. And so what happened was, I'm like, I'm going to make a play. I'm going to score. I need to do this. It needs to be me. So the defensive end stays. I ride the handoff super far for a long time, and then I pull it out. And I'm like, fuck, this guy did not bite. So he's just there waiting for me. And I'm like, it's fine. I can still get around him. So I just try to stiff arm him, and this shoulder that I mentioned earlier, my left shoulder, which had been injured for years, he grabs my arm, pulls it out of the socket. And I'm like on the ground for a few minutes. Like, definitely have stored trauma here. Which I can work on. But he pulls my arm out of the socket, and I'm laying on the ground. I'm like crying. I'm like, fuck, this hurts so bad. So they take me on the stretcher, or on the cart, like the golf cart, back into the locker room to try to pop my shoulder in. And this is the first time in my life the shoulder has not popped back in by itself. I've probably popped it out 50 times, but it would come back in by itself. This time it stayed out for 10 to 15 minutes, which was so fucking painful. And in this game, our backup quarterback was not there. I love this guy, Sam. He's a fucking awesome guy. Really great friend. And he didn't go to the game because I think he was visiting his grandma or something like this. But it's kind of a myth. It's like a myth full kill in our town. Like, where the fuck was the backup quarterback? Why was he not at the game, in the playoff game? But I don't hold it against him. He was going on to a baseball career. Like, go do your thing, bro. And it's funny how it happened. So our third string guy comes in the game, and I'm getting carted off into the locker room, and I look back, and I'm watching the first play. And the first play, for whatever reason, we run a pass play with a third string quarterback who hasn't played since freshman year, and it's a pick. He throws a pick. And I'm just like, oh, fuck, like, it's over. So in the locker room, they're working on my shoulder, and wow, my dad was in there with me. I hadn't thought about that until now. Wow, I'm so fucking grateful for him. He was so fucking supportive of me, and he still is. Oh, I'm so grateful for him. So fucking grateful. I love him. So he's in the locker room with me, and they're working on my shoulder. Man, I haven't thought about that in a long time. And eventually they get it to pop back in, and I can feel it now, like the pain. And it's back in, and they're like, do you want to go back in the game? And I'm like, fuck yeah, I'm going back in the game. And then they're like, do you have your shoulder brace? Wow, something's coming up now. Do you have your shoulder brace? I've worn a shoulder brace for like the past 2 years, but I didn't wear it that year. And I would usually bring it to the games, like just in case for whatever reason, and I didn't bring it to this game. So I've been reliving this dream in different forms for the past few years around not being prepared for a football game. Now it's connecting. I have a dream where in the dream I show up to the game and I'm like late, or I'm not ready, or I don't have my equipment, or like I'm not prepared essentially. And it's like a traumatic dream, and I wake up freaking out. And in reality, with my shoulder and not having the brace, the trainer's like, I'm not going to let you go into the game unless you have your shoulder brace. And I'm like, I don't fucking have it. They're like, well, you can't go back in. And at that point, I fucking conceded. I conceded, and I let go, and I chose to let somebody else tell me how to live my life. And I caved, and I said, okay. But the truth was, if I had the courage, my shoulder is pulsating right now. I feel it. If I had the courage and the willingness to go back in the game, and I said, no, I'm going back in. I don't care what you tell me, I'm going in. They would have let me go back in. But something inside of me didn't want to go back in the game. We were losing. It's the fourth quarter. It's pressure. There's 3,000 people in the stands. What if I fuck up? it would be easier to hope somebody else wins the game, or if we don't, it's not my fault because I got hurt. Same pattern as sophomore year of high school with the kicker, right? The kicker gets blamed, not me. This third string quarterback gets blamed, not me. And it's something that I regretted for a long time. I could have fought to go in the game and chose to be a warrior. But I chose passivity. I chose to concede. I chose to not want to be in the spotlight and not deal with the pressure and not have to be under the fire. Because of the illusion that there was ever anything to perform for. Right? I could have gone back in and said, fuck it, let's see what happens. Like, if my shoulder comes out again, whatever, it's already out, it doesn't matter. I'm going to get surgery anyways, doesn't matter. If we lose, fuck it, it's fine. At least I tried. I'm going to rip the ball around the field. I'm going to throw the ball, I'm going to run around, I'm going to just play. But I didn't, because I was too worried about what other people would think. My life has been so fucking crazy that this is all in episode 1, and this is high school. And I'm 18 years old still at this story, and now I'm 23, and like, wait till I get into the next fucking 5 years. So much has happened in my life. I'm so grateful, like, that source, God, the universe, has put me through all these situations so I could learn these lessons and share them with you all. That's why I'm here. So I don't go back in the game. The backup quarterback, third string quarterback, throws a... We actually almost won. I thought we were going to win at one point. And he ends up throwing another pick six, and we lose. And so sad. I still have pictures. I'm in a sling in the pictures hugging my friends like this was the end. This is the end of a fucking era. I have chills. I have so much love for Lake Zurich. I have so much love for my coaches. I have so much love for my teammates and my brothers. And most importantly, I have so much love for my younger self. For his heart, for his courage, despite not choosing into that moment, and for his leadership. And I forgive him, forgive me, forgive Jack, for not choosing to go back in that game. I forgive him for not fighting it. And I'm so grateful for my dad for being in the locker room with me. Whew, that's a little heavy. So that's how senior year football ended. I remember, like, oh my God, now other things are coming up. I stayed on the field. I think I was the last one on the field, and maybe that was a little bit of ego too, like I need to be the last one here. But I remember just sitting there on the field and staring at it, being like, this is over. But I wasn't fully present. I was still dissociating. I was looking ahead to the future still. Like, there was this part of me that's like, it's okay, I'm going to play D1 football. It's okay. It makes me feel sick thinking about that. It actually makes me sick. You know what's funny? Something I noticed is the sun is like right there, and it's like the clouds are divinely placed there so that there's not too much sun glaring on my face right now. See, this is where my mind goes, right? But yeah, I wasn't fully present, but I ended up staying there, and I was crying, and I was so emotional, but there was still a part of me that wasn't fully there. And I mean, what human being do you know that's fully there all the time? It's a rare human being, and I think that's our mission on this earth, right? To become fully present. And from that place of pure presence and pure unconditional love, our outer exterior purpose becomes clear. But something beautiful that happened in that moment was, as I'm walking off the field, that girlfriend from sophomore and junior year, that soulmate, she's waiting for me. Even though I fucking broke her heart and I hurt her. And we've had so many, at this point we've had a few ups and downs, like with other girls and other guys being involved, and I felt super hurt, and she felt super hurt, and yet she still chose to stand there and wait for me and cry with me and give me a hug and tell me I did such a great job and she loves me. And wow, 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 wow. What a beautiful soul. Thank you. After that, actually, we end up kind of getting back together, which is where the story goes now. So I end up choosing to get surgery, which is going to be happening in January, but right now it's like November, so I have a few months before the surgery. And I choose not to play basketball that year. I was debating it, but I chose to get surgery because I was looking ahead again, right? I was like, I got to be ready for Northwestern. So I chose to get surgery, and in those few months, me and that girlfriend begin to kind of get back together, but we're never formally dating. So this is where not having clear intentions and boundaries and communicating started to hurt me. So we're kind of on and off. I feel subtly trapped. I'm still looking ahead to the future. I'm like, I don't know if I really want to be in this. Like, there's so many other girls, but I'm like, I kind of still love her. I don't know what to do. And so I felt trapped and I didn't know a way out. And so the way out was a way out of cowardice. It was a way out of going behind somebody's back who loved me and choosing to take the easy way, which was actually the fucking hard way. So what happened was, I think it was like December, maybe, something around there, and we go to my friend's lake house for this huge party. It was so fun. We'd go there and have these huge parties and feel so free, like in Wisconsin, away from everybody, just time of our lives. Some of those parties were so fucking great. And my lust got the best of me. There was one other girl who I'd fucked in high school. And it was a girl who I'd had lust for since 6th grade. It was the first girl I sent nudes to. It was the first girl I was ever like sexually attracted to, and I always had the sexual desire for her. And so we had originally had sex homecoming that year. I'm really sharing all this, but whatever. We originally had sex homecoming that year when I was not with the old girlfriend, and that felt fine and it felt pure. And it was fun. And again, now, going to December, now I'm kind of in a relationship with this other girl, with the older girlfriend, the soulmate. But we're not technically dating. And so at like 3 a.m., all my friends go on a drive to go smoke, like the 5 or 6 dudes that are still up. And this girl, the other girl who I fucked in homecoming, is still up. And we end up having sex, but like it doesn't really work well. Like she's not fully in it. She's like, I don't know if I want this. And I'm like, I feel kind of guilty and shameful. I'm like, I shouldn't be doing this, but let's do it anyways. And I ended up nutting it in like 20 seconds. And it was just a really strange occurrence. And right after it, I'm like, what the fuck did I just do? What did I just do? So the next day, I remember I ended up going to a basketball game with my friends, a high school basketball game, and like I had been ignoring that old girl, soulmate. It's interesting how I'm referring to her as soulmate. I end up ignoring soulmate for a long time because I don't want to tell her, and I'm like, I don't know what to say. So I end up sending her some like bullshit message of like, I think we shouldn't be talking, or like I can't do this, like not being in a relationship. And I don't remember if I told her that I had sex with this other girl or what, but see, like this is kind of blocked from my memory because I started to dissociate from it so much. But I felt so bad. I felt so shameful and so guilty. And so The relationship ends up completely ending with the soulmate, and I'm like, she's never gonna talk to me again for good reason. We end up talking again many months later, but that was the origin of shame and guilt for me around sex. That then stayed with me for the next 5 years up until this day. And what happened in that moment was I got out of my heart and I went down to the lower energy centers. I went down to the second chakra, the sacral, and I only was in it for lust. And I started to close my heart. And I started to close my heart. And I closed my heart to romantic love, like true romantic love and openness and vulnerability and soul type of connection, which that's what the first one was. And I didn't know it, but it was. And I'm grateful that I had that level of depth in a high school relationship, because it was like we were soulmates. And, you know, nothing ever felt the same. Like, I would get into relationships over the next few months. Like, you know, at this time, I was pretty high status. I was a good-looking kid. I was playing quarterback. I was going to play D1 football. I was charismatic. I was smart. I was nice. So I could have been with any girl I wanted to. And so I start Snapchatting and talking to, like, the hottest girl from the Libertyville, the hottest girls from Stevenson, the hottest girls from other towns, a girl from the older grade, and I would get into romantic, like somewhat of romantic relationships with them over those next 6 months, finishing out senior year, going into college. But I was never fully there or present. So I would either sabotage the entire thing. Like, I remember we would start hanging out with these other girls in high school from the high school over, like amazing girls, super smart, beautiful, and 2 of them liked me. And one of them, like, it felt like it could have been another soulmate type connection. And the other one was more just like, she's so beautiful, like, I am so attracted to her physically. And so, instead of choosing one, I was told by one of them to, like, not tell the other, or, like, and then I go end up telling their friend about the situation, and I just completely sabotaged it and fucked it all up and ended up getting nobody or being with nobody. So I would either sabotage the relationship, or I'd be too scared to even initiate it. Like, I had this girl from a town over being, like, she's like the hottest girl, one of the hottest girls I've ever seen. This is high school, but she's like, I want to have sex with Jack Moses so bad. And any other dude would be like, okay, awesome. But I'm too scared. I'm too scared because I'm afraid to get my heart broken again. I'm afraid to open up fully. I feel shame and guilt for what I did. And I nutted in 20 seconds last time, and I don't want that to happen. So I either sabotage the situation, I either don't initiate it, or like shy away, or like don't respond because I'm scared, or I actually get into the romantic container and hang out with the girls, and when it comes time to have sex, dick goes soft. And I can't perform sexually. And that happened over the next, okay, let's say 18 to 23 now. That has probably happened 23 times. Like, being intimate, naked, about to have sex with a girl, doesn't happen, can't happen, doesn't work. And I've learned now it's because if the heart space is not activated in me, it doesn't work. If it's only the lower energy centers, it's not going to work. Plus, like, lack of presence, shame, guilt, anxiety, worrying about what people think of me. So many things factor into this, but we'll get into that in the second video. Like, where this performance anxiety and sex and mental health started to change my life in a really positive way, but we're going to save that. So, to finish off this senior year, COVID happens, so it's 2020, COVID happens, so we don't go to school. I don't go to school for the last 3 months of the year. It's fucking awesome. I'm just, like, playing video games all day with my friends. Like, me and my 2 best friends, Tyler and Patrick, we end up playing NBA 2K together until like 8 a.m. every night. And it was so fucking fun. That was a great time. And we would just be like drinking beers so much There was this movie called Dazed and Confused, which is a pretty cool fucking movie, and it's about like this high school in the 80s or 70s in America, and like these dudes all have like long hair, they ride skateboards, they smoke joints, they wear baggy clothes, they're super fucking cool. And we all kind of wanted to be like them. So like we would oh, what a beautiful fucking time. We would ride our longboards, and like I was never a kid that skateboarded. I was like goody two shoes, like buzz cut football player. And we started riding longboards and skateboards and bikes around town, drinking beers, smoking weed, and having a like beer drinking competitions in people's garages. Like we'd go every Wednesday night to my friend's house and have like 15, 20 beers. We'd have 2 grad parties on the weekend, Saturday, Sunday, and just be drinking so much. And it was so fun. And it felt like the shows that were out at the time too. Wow, this was such a beautiful fucking chapter. It was such a beautiful chapter. There was a show called Outer Banks, and it was again about like high school partying, and we were all watching it at the same time that we were living that lifestyle. Senior year, COVID, nothing to do, we're all going to college, like everything's good, and we're just partying our asses off. And it was such a fun few months of my life. And despite all the sexual insecurity kind of going on, and that was all subtly there, like the bonding experiences I had with my brothers and my friends in those years were absolutely beautiful. So during this time of drinking and celebrating life, and I'm going to play D1 football, everything's good, I start to not take my training as seriously, my nutrition as seriously, my health as seriously, and I'm like, I already made it, I'm good, everything's good. And so I start to put on some weight. I start to put on a little bit of weight, and I start to notice it a little bit for the first time. Like, whoa, what's this? What's this? And so I end up going to college June 2020. Yes, June 2020. Grad party season's still going on. I'd still come back, but gonna save that. So that's how high school ends. That's how the story of high school ends. That's how the story of my upbringing ends. So to recap everything, it's like as a kid, playing sports, older teams, trying to be good enough, talented, loves to play. Middle school, start like stepping into myself, great time, great friends, great school, I loved it. High school was up and downs, amazing soul level connection with this girl. Football, the ups and downs with that, the patterns that have persisted from these early formative experiences throughout my life. And senior year, everything that happened with the girls, with the football team, with the shoulder, with the surgery, with COVID, with playing video games, with drinking beers and celebrating life and putting on weight and not being really ready for college football, but I never wanted to look at it or admit it to myself. And so that's where this story ends. So let me see if there's anything else I wanted to mention that I didn't mention. No, I think it's complete. So if you watched this whole video, super cool. Thank you for watching. I appreciate you spending an hour and a half of your time. I want to say a quick prayer to end this, so you can join me if you like. If not, it's also okay. If you want to click off, this is too much, cool. I appreciate you and I love you. So, thank you to my higher self for guiding me to this moment. Thank you for allowing me to have the funds and resources to book this trip to Hawaii and rent this beautiful Airbnb. Thank you to the technology that I am able to create this video with. Thank you to all the experiences that I've had over the past few years in my entire life that have formed me and shaped me and allowed me to share this message. Thank you to the spirits and angels who guide me along this journey and protect me throughout. Thank you to the sun. Thank you to the moon. Thank you to the earth. Thank you to this beautiful island of Hawaii. Thank you to you, the viewer, for investing your precious attention and energy in listening to my story. Thank you for your openness to listen to my crazy ideas. And I'm sending you so much love if you made it to the end. God has you. Spirits and angels surround you. Everything is unfolding for your highest growth, even if you can't see it right now. Everything is divinely orchestrated. You are protected. You are guided. You are loved. God, please allow me to continue to speak as much truth in these future videos as I am now. Thank you. Amen. Okay, so that's it for that video 1. This is probably going to be chapter 1 of Trust Yourself, which is interesting how it's coming together. I'm going to transcribe this and stuff. But yeah, with that being said, if you made it to the end, subscribe if you like. Like the video if you like. Send it to a friend if you think it's interesting, if you think it's funny, if you think it's weird, if you learned something. I'd love to hear what you learned too, or what you experienced watching this. So feel free to send me an email. That's probably like where you really get my attention. jackmoses@jackmoses.co. Send me an email, and I'd be curious to hear your thoughts. And if you're interested in working together in any capacity, also send me an email. I'm going to be releasing a course soon called Internal Freedom. I have a course already out there called Internet Freedom, which is basically everything I learned about how to create this life, this online income, creator economy, content, marketing, all of it. But I'm making a course called Internal Freedom. So how to become free, awakening, authenticity, integrity, self-expression, living from love, all of these great things. So be on the lookout. I'm building a school called Transcendence, which is going to be around raising your consciousness and the consciousness of humanity. And I'm going to be writing a book called Trust Yourself, which is going to be based on this video series. So be on the lookout for those things. The last thing is I want to start opening up spots for one-on-one emotional coaching, internal freedom coaching. I've done so much coaching, consulting on marketing, sales, funnels, cohorts, content creation, all these great things, which is beautiful, and I'm grateful that I have the skills and I can share that. But I would love to work with, maybe we'll say 2 to 3 young people, not young people, whoever, fuck that, 2 to 3 beautiful people who are looking to experience more freedom, more love, more bliss, more peace, more authenticity, more integrity, more self-expression, more alignment, and more freedom in their lives. So if you'd like to work with me one-on-one, I don't have a rate right now as how much it is, but send me an email and we can work out a price that works for you. So with that, I'm sending you so much love, so much gratitude. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in episode 2.